right now.
Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Shoemaker, and I'm the coordinator of these panel discussions. So welcome and thank you for coming along. I'm really pleased today to introduce the newest member of our team, Amy Moles, who is an engineering lecturer in our Tala campus. Our topic today is about creativity within the apprenticeship, engineering, and computing industries. And you're probably like myself, the first time I heard about this, I thought, how does this relate to everything? But we're going to hear more about that. So I'm going to hand you over to Amy, who's going to kick this event off for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy, and I will be moderating today's event as we embark on a topic which I personally love, a look at the creative aspects in technology. Firstly, I would like to introduce our opening speaker, Dr. Keith Sunderland. Keith is the head of the Electrical Engineering Services and Energy Management Department in the School of Engineering in TU Dublin City Campus. Keith.
Thanks a million, Amy, and delighted to be here today. So, hello everyone. As I said, I'm delighted to be here today, and I'm honoured to be introducing this webinar on women in engineering, IT, and apprenticeships. Before I start with my opening comments, I'd like to welcome today's esteemed panellists, Amy, Rowe, Clodagh, and Brendan. I'm sure their discussion will be very interesting and enlightening. So today's discussion concerns the creative aspects associated with careers in apprenticeship, computing, and engineering. Apprenticeship is close to my heart. I started my engineering career as an apprentice electrician with Eaton or Irish Rail to everyone else. It was a great place for a 17-year-old, I should say. I was exposed to all kinds of systems ranging from heavy traction on the DART trams to large telecom systems, as big at the time as those possessed by Aircom, the precursor to air. When I reflect deeper on that time, however, I recognize the creative or entrepreneurship element that is so pervasive throughout an apprenticeship. When you are young and inexperienced and thrust into an environment with people that are experts in their fields, the learning ranges from effective engagement with people, where you learn to pick up on information around the problems you encounter, to appreciating and preempting technical challenges that are ahead of your time before you've even had a chance or opportunity to prepare for them. Today, one part of my brief in the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering is to manage the electrical apprenticeship facilitation in association with our colleagues in SOLAS. The entrepreneurship I experienced is as prevalent today as it was for me, but with even more breadth. Apprentices need to expand their knowledge to include ICT, smart systems, and commercial awareness in a fast-paced commercial environment where they are responsible and in many instances subject to strict regulation from the day they graduate. In my role in the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, I'm focused on our students and at the start of their career journey. Indeed, when I think of first-year students or apprentices today, and in the context of their careers being underpinned by lifelong learning expectation, qualifications are not destinations in their own right. Rather, they are just milestones where vertical and lateral progressions are achieved and competences are forged. Practice-based learning is increasingly at the core element of modern-day higher education, where internships and work placements are opportunities for students to craft their expertise, and where employers can build their teams through a longer and safer recruitment process. Companies embrace the opportunities internships offer them in identifying the right people. Amy can attest to that in her journey with Mastercard. I believe that the future will involve more programs that encapsulate practical learning that are sufficiently diverse and open so that the inner entrepreneur and creative spirit within our students is allowed to flourish. Indeed, and to paraphrase a former colleague, how else can students doing their leaving certs today at a time of unprecedented development in the world prepare for careers that have yet to be given titles? So thanks very much for that, and I'll pass you back to Amy.
Thank you, Keith. That was really lovely. I am very lucky to be part of the esteemed team. The team currently has 5 members. Leslie, who opened for us, is the founder of Esteem. She is also a lecturer in the School of Computer Science in City Campus. We also have Trace Fitzgerald with access to apprenticeship and Women Building the Future in City Campus, unable to be with us today. Rebecca Jones, who is with the Pre-Entry Access Office and Building Esteem in City Campus. Hi, Rebecca. And Michelle Luby. Michelle is a senior lecturer in engineering in TU Dublin Blanchardstown campus and is one of the founding members of WIT2, Women in Technology United. WIT2 is a pan-university network consisting of staff across all the TU Dublin campuses, whose key aims are to retain students and increase gender diversity in technology courses. Hi, Michelle. This webinar will look at the creative aspects of careers in technology. We are very lucky to have a dynamic panel with us today. Why is creativity important in these industries and the exciting and dynamic careers that students can aspire to? We will hear all about this today. Panelists, you are so very welcome and thank you so much for being here. On our panel, we have Amy Rowe. Amy is a software development engineer with Mastercard's Dublin Technology Hub. She joined Mastercard in the internship program in 2018 and returned as a graduate in 2019 as part of the Launch Graduate Program. She is now a member of both intern and university engagement committees here in TU Dublin. I'd like to welcome Amy. Clodagh Brady is an operations manager in premium support with Amazon. Clodagh started in Amazon Web Services as a graduate in 2015 from our own TU Dublin, Kevin Street. Unknowing of the great career ahead of her, she has specialized in DevOps and now she is a manager at Amazon. While working with her own team, she has also become part of a team that now runs a graduate program here in TU Dublin. Welcome, Clodagh. Brendan Feeney, Senior User Experience Product Engineer, with Eaton Centre for Intelligent Power. Eaton, a power management company with a long history of electrical hardware and components. He collaborates with internal teams to facilitate ideation, problem solving, and help share the strategic direction of products and services. His work ranges across a whole product lifecycle, and from product inception to market release. A designer for many years, he originally studied and worked in product architecture, and for a few years before he moved into the world of user experience design. Welcome, Brendan. Thank you all for being with us. And without further ado, I would like to get the panel discussion underway. There was one extremely popular question that came in from our students. So I thought it would be nice to get the views across the entire panel. This question was, at first glance, it seems like computing, apprenticeship, and engineering may not have much to do with creativity and more to do with logic, problem solving, and even maths. What do you think? Clodagh, if we could come to you first.
Hey, so I suppose a myth with computing is that it's all maths, it's all logic, it's all just sitting at your desk typing all day. When really it's probably one of the most creative maybe careers that you could have. If you think about it, when we're kind of building products, when we're looking at applications or we're looking at different technologies, there's so many different resources and different components that are involved, which require a sense of creativity to get your ideas to come to life. So say, for example, well, I suppose the coolest thing that came to my mind when I was looking at these questions was a smart garden that my team made last year. So essentially it's a garden that looks after itself, which I suppose for some of us would be the dream, because I don't know about you, but plants and me do not go together. But basically they created this kind of purple light that also doubled as a waterer and a feeder as well. So if it was particularly warm that day, it would check the temperature and it would water it a bit more. If the plant wasn't getting a lot of light, it had sensors in it so we could test it, so it would turn on the purple light. And it was able to vary the food based on the sensors as well. So to me, that's a fantastic example of creativity in itself, in a cool product that a lot of people need, a lot of people can use. But the way that it's done and the components that were involved is really where the creativity comes in. Kind of similar to if you're creating an art piece, you need your hardware, you need your components. The skills is what comes in then with computing to get it done. And then it's the ideas of making these things is really kind of where the creativity can shine. And that's always been my experience in computing anyway.
Thank you, Clodagh. I have to say, I loved how you compared your project work on your garden with an art piece, because really it was just nice to try out all those computing myths out the door. Thank you very much. It was lovely. And Amy, if we could come to you next, please.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think problem solving and logic are obviously, they're a big part of coming into a computing degree or coming into a computing career as well. But as Clodagh said, like creativity is kind of like the main source of everything, because everybody gets given the same tools in order to, like everybody gets taught like certain programming languages and everything like that in college. But it's your passion and your creativity which actually puts you kind of away from everybody else, and it gives you what makes you unique and what you enjoy in the career. And I think that's kind of why one of the biggest kind of technological kind of revolutions has happened in the last 50, 60 years, because people have been passionate, people have been creative, and they wanted to solve issues that they were having in their life, or they wanted to solve issues that they knew a lot of people were having, and they could commercialize that as well. And I think it's really cool. Like in Mastercard, we're doing we have Dublin is the kind of the headquarters for Mastercard Labs, and basically they work a lot with financial inclusion. So they've worked with a couple of very small villages in Africa, and basically they give everybody in the little town a credit card, and people are able to buy electricity from the solar panels and everything. So it creates like a little kind of economy in the little villages and stuff. So I think it's crazy that 20, 30 years we could have never thought about that, but because people were creative, they wanted to solve issues that, say, people in these villages were having. It really kind of brought them into more of the modern world. So I think it's really cool. Like, yeah, problem solving and logic are big, but also creativity definitely makes all the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I have to say, I really enjoyed how you actually did acknowledge that we do need logic, but however, how creativity is really, really important to you, and how it makes actually you or anybody individual and unique in their actual job. Brendan, we'll come back to you next. What would you say to those who are a bit skeptical and say engineering may not have much to do with creativity and more to do with logic?
So I think really building on what Amy and Clodagh have said there is that creativity is inherent in these areas, and really it's just a question of language. A lot of the time, corporate worlds, they conceptualize and think about creativity as this kind of chaotic artistic studio where everyone, where it's just a mess, and there's a real kind of it seems like it's something that's very risky, when in fact it's not at all. Creativity to me is about inventiveness. And I think that's applicable to all of these groups that we're talking to here today. Really within kind of, in our business in Eaton, what we do is we take creativity, but we encourage it to be healthy creativity. So we put limits on it. So limits look like, a brief or a specification for a project, or a problem statement, or a vision, or a strategy, or a mission, or any of those kind of documents. It's kind of saying, go mad, but like go mad within these limits. And so creativity is essential to the modern economy, really. It's creativity is about problem solving. It is about logic. It's often phrased as being innovative or solution focused, but in fact, what we're talking about every time is creativity. Creativity is key to the future economy, really. Yeah.
Brilliant, Brendan. Thank you. One thing I really took from that is that I would put out there: take a creative risk. To paraphrase you, I really liked it. So creativity is a little bit risky, but you know what? Fortune favors the brave. So take a little creative risk. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, Brendan. We're going to come on now to our individual questions that were posted to our panelists. Amy, we might come back to you for this one. Submitted to you, our students would like to ask, what does the creative process look like in your day-to-day job?
So my job title is technically, I am a software engineer who specializes in testing. So I spend a lot of my day working on creative solutions. You're going to hear this a lot, in order to test our applications. So we kind of, the development engineers, they write the code and then they give it to me and I will automate the code. But sometimes the code, it doesn't work as expected, or that the technology that we have doesn't work in the way that's specifically kind of meant for the program. So we have to be super creative in the ways that we kind of work around it. I also triage a lot of issues. So because I'm a tester, sometimes I find an issue and then we have to go and triage the issue. And sometimes it's not exactly just black and white. It's not the issue that you find. Sometimes you have to dig through a database or logs or whatever. And sometimes you have to get a little bit creative in the ways that you actually solve an issue. Not, you know, it doesn't kind of, the same kind of path doesn't fit for every single problem. And as well, because I'm kind of, I have only been in the company for 2 or 3 years. So I joined this special interest group, which basically means that we have people from all over the company, all different job titles and lengths in computing. And we all kind of work together to try and find out if there's any new kind of innovative technologies that we can bring into the company. As well, I think sometimes I have a little bit of an edge as well because I am on the intern committee. So I talk to a lot of the interns who, you know, most of the interns that we bring in and that we see have these amazing GitHub repos, and they talk about, you know, they have all of these crazy technologies that, like, I've only gone from college 2 years and I didn't even hear about them 2 years ago, you know. So they have, I feel like getting people who are younger in to talk about this stuff is really, really good, which is, you know, why the students are so important and why they're so creative, because they kind of, you know, as I said earlier, everybody gets given the same tools, but it's what you do with the tools that really helps. But yeah, that's kind of mainly with me.
Brilliant, Amy. Thank you so much. I have to say, it's lovely to hear someone in their day-to-day job speaking about how creativity can be used as a practical problem-solving tool, and you can use it really every day. And that is so true. And I think sometimes people don't see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brendan, I'm going to pass over to you now. Here's one for you. As society continues its rapid growth and technological advancements, engineers are facing problems they have never seen before. This is where creativity comes into play, and you can give examples from your own work life on how you might tackle this.
Sure. I think thinking about that, Amy, what I would say is, like, aside from just emerging challenges, we also have emerging intelligence as well. So within Eaton and the Centre for Intelligent Power here based in Dublin, what we've been doing for the last 3 years since our inception really is a lot of our team are data scientists and system engineers, and we've been brought into a company that's been historically electrical hardware. So Eaton is everywhere. You've never heard about them, but they're everywhere. We're in data science, power management, we're in electrical grids, we're in the circuit breakers in homes. And all of those devices have been there for decades, quietly collecting data in isolation. And what we're starting to do now is to bring all that data together and to connect it. And what's emerging from that is new information that we never had access to historically. So now we get something like, we might have a data scientist that can take that knowledge, put an algorithm to it, and we start to create new opportunities. And actually the challenge there is, what do we do with these new opportunities that we create, you know? So one of my roles within the org is to help facilitate constructive conversations around those topics. We'll do workshops and we'll really try and flesh out what is the opportunity here, how can we support this, and how can we develop this into a product or service that's really going to appeal to the market at large, and how can it solve everyday problems, and one being the emergence of electrical vehicles and the demand that's going to put on the grid in the next 10 years. That's a big one that we're dealing with at the moment. So there's a lot of challenge there, and there's a lot of collaboration. Really, for me, I think creativity is very much a collaborative effort within Eaton. It's all about, workshops are a big thing, a big part of what we do, just around getting all of the knowledge in one virtual space and really starting to use that to form, you know, a product strategy or a service strategy, and going from there and moving into the project over the long product life cycle, which could be a number of years. Yeah.
Brilliant, Brendan. Thank you so much. I have to say, I always, from yours, it seems I get these one-liners that come to mind. I really liked creativity is collaborative. Really like that. That's what came to my mind from that as well. And also, when you were talking about the emerging intelligence in the future, absolutely, we have all this data now, all these signals coming back from the electrical systems, and knowing what to do with it next, getting the analysis and products around it. Absolutely brilliant. It's very futuristic, and something I personally have a lot of interest in. Absolutely brilliant. And the creative side around that, it's very creative. Thank you. And Clodagh, if we could come back to you. Our students have asked about their CVs in preparing for work placements. So they have asked, how could they show their creativity in a CV for a work placement or a professional role?
Yeah, I get this. I get asked this question all the time, and I think the main kind of thing I want to get across before I say anything else is just focus on what you've done and not what you've not done, because that's really what will damage creativity. Is if you worry too much about, oh, I don't have this, or I haven't done that, or I've never had a job before. For me, I've gone through a lot of different CVs, different types, and what sticks out for me is the enthusiasm someone has for the actual job or the actual technology space that we're in. And that's really where you can show your creativity, by putting in the projects that you've done in college. Any of the cool things that really did interest you, put them first. Anything that you've done at home, like if you've done some kind of coding dojo thing, put that first in the CV, because it shows us not only do you have an enthusiasm to learn, but you can show your creativity, what you're good at, what you've at least tried to do outside of your kind of day-to-day role. Like I've seen some really cool projects over the years, some that were fixing everyday problems, like perhaps making an app to help people who use sign language all day, every day. I've seen really cool ones where people made mini kind of apps for their day-to-day jobs just to help out their manager and things like that, and they were able to incorporate that in there. So these are the really creative things that really tell us like what kind of person that you are. And then this is the kind of things that really kind of, as for me as a hiring manager, I want to get you into an interview, because I want to talk to you more about these cool projects that you've done. And don't worry about things like you've never done an internship or you've never had a part-time job or things like that, because odds are if you're in an engineering degree like myself, you won't have time to do that. So we're absolutely not judging you on any of those things you haven't done. We want to see what you have.
Brilliant, Clodagh. Thank you very much. Absolutely brilliant advice on focus what you have done and not what you haven't done or what you're missing. I love that. Almost you have to sell yourself, don't you? It's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Brendan, we're going to come back to you again. We have a great question here. So what does creativity look like in your day-to-day working life? Thanks.
Sure. So my role in Eaton is a user experience designer, and there's a fairly consistent kind of design process or pipeline that we follow throughout a project lifecycle at Eaton. So one of the first things we do is the research phase. So this could be workshops, interviews, it could be observing end users, using a product, or maybe they're using the current, how they interact with the current system, and kind of just trying to identify what problems or challenges are there, competitor analysis, just really trying to understand the problem space as much as we can. And then from there, I would move into some early kind of information architecture and early wireframes. So this is really just looking at what the screens might look like, whether it's a desktop application or whether it's for mobile, and just trying to make sure that the user is front and center there. Is from that early research, can we just clarify the core needs of those end users, and make sure that they're being addressed at this early wireframing and architecture stage. And then after that, we'd bring it into a prototype. So we'd flesh it out into a more visually appealing set of screens, and we'd use them for some user testing. So we'd put those in front of those end users, start to get feedback, and that's quite a fun and creative process, because there's a lot of tips and tricks there around getting feedback from people where they're not telling you what they think you want to hear, and they're actually telling you what their problem is. Because a lot of the time, if you put something in front of somebody and you say you spent many hours working on this, they don't want to hurt your feelings and tell you that it's crap. So there's ways and means around that. That's quite fun, and there's that's something that I quite enjoy in the work that I do. From there, then we take a lot of that feedback and start to iterate and refine those designs and kind of package them up into a more high fidelity final design product ready to be built. And then once the product goes live into the market, we would occasionally then reach out for continuous kind of user feedback so that we can continue to iterate and improve that product, because they're rarely perfect when they're released. And I think everyone who uses any technology knows these days, you know, we're constantly getting releases and updates to products because they constantly need to be improved. And that's a key part of what we do as well.
Brilliant, Brendan. Thank you. You're so lucky to have the opportunity to show so much creativity in your job, and especially getting feedback from your end customers and using even creativity to get the feedback out of them. The true feedback is absolutely wonderful. Well done, and thank you. Clodagh, if we could come back to you, if that's okay. I have one for you here that I think is quite an interesting one. Can creativity and technology coexist, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, in my opinion, they can't really exist without each other. Like everyone has different levels of creativity, different types of creativities that they bring to the table, and it's those combined creativities together is what makes some really cool stuff. Like, you know, looking back on my first day out of college, not having a clue why they hired me, I just saw a lot of people around me who were super smart, and I knew I'd have to work hard to kind of, you know, be up at their level. But, you know, over time and as I studied and as I grew up a little bit, I was able to see, you know what, I have strengths that I can bring to the table here too. And I was able to get really creative around that. And I was very lucky. I had a fantastic manager at the time who was very supportive and is still a mentor to me to this day. And so like I was able to bring, you know, okay, well, this is what I can do. And this is how I can, you know, improve things based on what I can bring to the table. And one thing that I did was I made a game, but it was a game to teach other engineers who came after me about how to use more technology and to improve their learning. But I thought it would, you know, be more fun to make it into a game. And it was a whole day of me just torturing them and having to get the flag from each level to get to the next level. But they really enjoyed it. They learned a lot from it. And that was 5 years ago. We're still doing it to this day in a slightly different kind of more modern way. But that was something that I had the idea, wouldn't this be fun? I would love to do this. Maybe others would like to do this. And I was able to explore it and bring it in. And, you know, it's impacted our graduate program so fantastically because it changed the way how we changed our graduates, which, you know, turned them into the fantastic engineers that we are today. Not by itself, but I'd like to think it helped a little bit. But yeah, like in summary, you need creativity to think of these things and to make some really cool things, or just understand what it is can you bring to the table in any job. And that's, I suppose, how I did it in my experience.
Thank you, Clodagh. I really loved how you acknowledged the team and how everybody has different creativity, but that in a team, everybody's different creativities come together, and that's what's really important. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. And it's a really, really valid point, acknowledging how everyone brings something different. Thank you very much. So Amy, can I ask you, what would you say to someone who doesn't consider themselves to be a creative person? And do you feel that would hold them back maybe in their IT career?
So first of all, I don't think anybody is not creative. I think everybody is creative in their own way. And when it's something that you're passionate about, definitely. Like, I never considered myself as a creative person when I was growing up. But when you come into industry, or when you come in, maybe even in college, when you start like doing stuff that you're really passionate about, you realize that the word like to be creative and the action of being creative is so subjective. Like, if you had asked me a couple of years ago what being creative meant, like before I was in college, I would have used it as a synonym for artistic. And obviously there is a little bit of, you know, you have to be kind of a little bit artistic while being creative. But because I was never good at, say, like writing stories or drawing or painting, I would have said, oh, I'm definitely not a creative person. But I think when you get into something that you're passionate about, and the same as what Clodagh was talking about earlier, about like when people do, like they're something about when people talk and they do something that they're enthusiastic and kind of they're passionate about, you really see their true colors and you see them like what they actually are capable of. And I think that when you actually come into industry and you see the people around you, you realize that they're a lot more creative than what you originally gave them credit for. You know, you might have just thought, oh, you know, you're a software engineer, all you do is write code. But when you actually come in and you talk to the people and you hear them talking about solutions that they created, or maybe like a really tough defect that they fixed, or, you know, something, you realize that the passion is there and they're actually, there is so much more creative. And yeah, and it's really inspiring as well to see how different people work and how different people, you know, the same as what Brendan was saying earlier about that you're given a spec, but it would, if you gave 5 different people the same spec, they might come back doing completely different things to get to the same endpoint. So that's something that is really interesting. But yeah, never don't call yourself creative, because everybody is definitely creative.
Brilliant, Amy. Thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful, actually, to acknowledge the misconception of how artistic people can think artistic and creative is the same thing. And there are so many different ways to be creative, and how everybody is creative in their own way. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. So Brendan, we're going to come back to you if we could. How could I work on my creative skills at the moment before I enter a professional job?
Okay, so I'm thinking actually of some stuff that both Clodagh and Amy have said. So Amy has said, you know, that everybody's creative, and I completely 100% agree with her. And thinking as about what Clodagh said in response to this topic is, don't focus on what you haven't done or what you don't know. I would encourage anyone to kind of maybe do a little bit of a self-audit, and that's really just looking back at your college work and trying to see, you know, is there a process in the way that I've approached whatever projects I've worked on over my course and over my learning. You know, what steps do I typically take? Is there something I used to do that I no longer do? What have I started doing that works better than how I used to do things 2 years ago? You know, and really what you're trying to do there is, one, identify what your creative process is, because it is a creative and it is a process, and it's how you go about it. But in doing that, you're also getting a sense of where you've come from and where you might be going. And that's kind of an ongoing sort of internal conversation. It's something I do every year. I kind of just do a little bit of a self-review, just to kind of check in with myself and see where I am, and if I'm happy where I'm at, and if I'm happy where I'm going. Because I think as well, it's important to remember that a working relationship is a relationship, and it's a two-way street, and it's not just about what you bring to your employer, it's about what your employer can bring to you. So I would encourage you, on top of all of that, to talk to people. I know it's hard in COVID times, but you know, you have LinkedIn, reach out, message people. I have done it occasionally. I've met strangers for coffee to share what I know with them. And I know people who are equally happy to do the same and have done it for me. Interview for that role that you think you're underqualified for. You probably won't get it, but you might get a lot of information out of it. Or go to stuff like meetups, meetup.com, and just see what's out there. Just talk, basically. Just the more you talk to people, the more you realize it's not this big empty box where you have to be this high performing person to get in the door. You don't. You absolutely don't. You have creative value already. You just need to figure out what it is.
Brilliant, Brendan. Thank you. I have to say, I love the thought about doing a self-check. Actually check yourself, look back, and look at your progression, look at your journey. That's absolutely brilliant advice. And also try and define what your creative process is. And then by doing that, I'm sure then we could critique it and, you know, add and acknowledge actually our inner creative person and what's working well for us. Brilliant advice. Thank you so much. Really good. Clodagh, I'm going to come back to you now, if that's okay. We're changing it up a little bit here. Can creativity in computing help make a positive difference in our world? Really important.
100%, because, you know, at the end of the day, behind these computers are people with the ideas of what they want to improve in the world. And over the years, like I've seen people with different ideas for, you know, apps to spread awareness about the environment. You have solar panels and what we could do with that data and the technology we could create to even help the ozone layer and things like that, like amazing stuff. And like there's even such simple things. And I'm going to refer to a documentary I've just watched by Jeff Goldblum, so bear with me. But he went to this lab where they have these temporary tattoos that you stick on your skin that can assess your blood sugar levels, which helps people with diabetes. Or the one that he tried on was you go outside and it tests your exposure to the sun. So if you have too much sun, it warns you and you can get out of the sun. So that prevents cancer and all this other stuff as well. So there's so much creativity in computing. It's just about looking out there, seeing what's there, seeing what new things we can add. And there's always, I think Brendan touched on this, there's always a better way to do things every year. There's always more technology we can utilize for these things. So it to me, I find it very exciting to even just look and see, oh, well, there's this new thing that's out there now. And even look at the COVID vaccine, if you think about it, the turnaround with that was crazy, and the technology within it, I don't know if you've read up on it, but I found it very interesting. So yeah, I think it does make a positive difference in the world.
Brilliant, Clodagh. Thank you so much. You certainly opened my mind to the creativity out there. And I really like the idea of always looking for a better way to do things. So I'm certainly going to take that away from you there. Thank you very, very much. And Amy, we're going to come back to you. If you could tell me a little bit about the types of creative products that you have worked on.
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest kind of creative kind of time in my career so far has been when COVID happened. Like obviously we all had to pivot extremely quickly to working online and collaborating online. And I found it so tough at the start, but having people around you to kind of be like, okay, so, you know, like maybe when you were in the office, you might have been collaborating with somebody and they might have like taken your mouse or something and your keyboard and like showed you how to do something or whatever. Like, I think it's, you know, trying to find, say, software that does the same things that you would have done in person was really interesting, and being super creative with, you know, with how you use software. Like we used Teams, like Microsoft Teams, in a different way than we had ever used it before because we had pivoted to online and stuff. So I think it was really interesting to work with stuff like that. But also it was my first year on the intern committee last year, and halfway through the guys' internships, we had to go online, and I wasn't prepared. They weren't prepared. None of us had ever really worked from home before. And it was so rewarding actually to see everybody kind of get a lot more comfortable with being online. And one of the biggest kind of events that we have every year for the internship is our internship hackathon. So basically it was, we give the interns teams and a problem, and we give them like 2 days to solve it, and they don't do any actual work for the couple of days, and then they present it to the whole office. But obviously you can't really do that, and at the time, say last year, Zoom wasn't really capable of having a meeting with like thousands of people in it. I think it's, you know, it's gotten a bit better now, but it was so interesting that we could like change we were given like full creative control. We got to, you know, change the deliverables a little bit to suit a more online world and stuff. So it was really interesting to kind of pivot everything to online, both in like a professional sense and also in the extracurricular stuff that I do, such as, you know, the interns, and even speaking to the colleges and stuff. Like this is the second year that we've done this online, and you know, this is so interesting to do these panels and to meet everybody in a different way than we would have in the past. So it's something that I think is really cool. Like obviously COVID has kind of, it's not been great, but there have been some positives, and it's really let people's creativity shine. So I think it's cool.
Brilliant, Amy. Thank you very much. It was lovely to hear how you used creativity to really bend and flex tools and things that we took for granted, and how we use them to help you get through the pandemic and working from home. Absolutely brilliant. Really good. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, I think that's all the time we have. So thank you to all our panelists. In closing, I would really, really like to thank you all so much. I feel this has been a thoroughly rewarding session, and I, for one, feel inspired. I hope everyone watching has also enjoyed the discussions as much as I have. We have 2 further events coming up in the new year. We have an event looking at the hidden benefits of the pandemic for apprenticeship computing and engineering, and we will also be discussing understanding and tackling unconscious bias in apprenticeship computing and engineering. I would like to thank everyone again and wish you a safe and very happy festive season. And I would like to leave you with a quote by Albert Einstein that I feel sums up a lot of what we've said today. So Albert said, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." Thank you very much. And Rebecca's going to jump in now with our survey.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everybody. It was a great panelist. I'm just here to encourage everybody to fill in the post-evaluation feedback form. It's so important because the people out of the audience that's watching this, and all the second level students, the third level students, the apprenticeships, everybody at home, the academics, and all the people in the industry that are watching this, it'd be great to hear your feedback and how we can improve this going forward, what you like, what you don't like. It just takes 2 minutes, but it's really invaluable to us. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.